Hey folks, just wanted to remind you all that if you support our sponsor, you're also supporting us. So go check out the War for the Tower podcast, an actual play RPG podcast set in the world of Stephen King's Dark Tower. If you enjoyed Miles and my coverage, you'll know that we had some real problems with the way that the original Dark Tower story unfolded, and this RPG aims to correct some of those errors. I hope that you guys will check them out at warforthetower.com or search War for the Tower on your podcatcher.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, Season 7, Episode 9, supposedly. Hide. In this episode, it's 2 days before Halloween, ladies and gentlemen, as we record this. And we get to record about a ghost story. And it's not really a ghost story, but that's fine, because it feels like a ghost story. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I am Jamie.
So, Jamie, I can't tell you how delighted I was when I realized that this was going to be a ghost story when it started.
I knew you would be. I'm very happy that this worked out the way that it did.
I'm delighted. It was so it was just, not only was it a ghost story, but it was like a very classic, big, manor-haunted, candlestick-holding, wispy, like, curtains rustling, large doors with locks that shake kind of scary story. This is what I'm here for, folks. This is what I like. So anybody who was upset with us, because if they were upset, but you know, we had to skip a week because of our bad
Amazon. But if that hadn't happened, we would have recorded this last week.
Mm-hmm. So
it all worked out the way it was supposed to.
Fate. The podcast god smiled upon us.
That's right.
So, yeah, this episode was like, I found this one to be really solid. I really liked this one. I was a little worried because I started off so excited and then I was like, but what if it lets me down? What if it's not? And then it didn't. It didn't let me down. It was just great. It was super fun and I really liked it.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So we start off with, what is this actor who is the hottest?
That's Dougray Scott. He, you may know from Ever After. Did you ever see Ever After?
I think I did at one point.
He plays like the Prince Charming to Drew Barrymore's Cinderella.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I have seen that a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's where I know him from, though. I'm trying to look at his like thing now.
He's been in so many things.
It says
that's
Taken 3. Oh, no.
I didn't see that.
Oh, he was in Desperate Housewives. I bet that's where I know him from.
Oh, I never watched that either.
It's bad.
I didn't recognize him. I was like, he's very handsome. I need to look up who this is. And then at the end it said Dougray Scott, and I was like, what? And so I looked it up. Like, did I read that wrong? No, it's totally him. When I think of that actor, I think of what he looked like in Ever After, because that's where I first learned who he was. I know he was in like a Mission Impossible, one of those Mission Impossibles.
Oh, yeah, that's on here as well. I don't think I saw that one, but I might have actually. Maybe I did. I feel like
eventually
the first
one or the
see all
second
of them.
one?
What's that?
Is it the first one or the second one?
2.
Yeah, that's a really bad one. I wouldn't recommend it. That made me actually be like, I'm not going to watch these movies anymore. And then my friend convinced me to watch the third one, which was fun.
Which was fun, yeah. That was, It felt like they were very influenced by John Wick for that third one.
Except John Wick is like 2 decades later.
Really? For the third one? What's the one that just came out then? Like, 4
Fallout?
years ago.
Yeah, that's like the 6th one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Jesus. Well, whatever the most recent one is, it felt like it was influenced, but it might be my
could've
imagination. Been. I don't know.
What, does Tom Cruise kill a puppy or something?
Oh, God, no. It was like the style in which it was much more like stylized and heavy on like color, and it just felt like, you know how John Wick is so sort of operatic sometimes. God, but he is so sexy though. Ugh! I really like this woman who's in love with him throughout the episode. I'm just like, honey, yes, get it.
She is so beautiful.
The woman who's in love with him?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's really pretty. She's got these like full lips.
Yeah.
And he is really good as this, like, he has to straddle the line between feeling like a genuine academic and also like somebody that you could see doing things that are like legit dangerous. And he really does manage that. He's somebody that you feel like, oh yeah, I could feel that edge to you, where you were probably pretty dashing at one point and now you're trying to like settle and do things that are a bit more safe, but you're still willing to take risks, you know?
Like when the doctor's talking about all the things that he did in the war.
Yes.
And you're like, wow, those are pretty intense things.
Is he real? Is he based on a real character?
No.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I didn't look it up, so. But yeah, so the cold open is him and his assistant. He's named Alec and she's Emma. And it was funny because they are wearing like retro clothing a little bit, but it's not such extreme retro clothing that I immediately assumed that we were back in time. I sort of thought maybe they were just, you know, really hipstery. I don't know. But it does turn out that it's like 74, I think, right?
Yeah.
And they are in this house that it turns out he owns. And she is an empathic psychic who is meant to be bridging the gap in this investigation of a ghost at this property, who we find out later has been around longer than this property has existed, actually. And that really was surprising. I liked that twist because I just didn't see that coming. You never hear about that, a ghost that's around before a property was built. It always feels like the ghost is linked to the property, and that's how that goes.
Right.
So I liked that little change, addition, whatever you want to call it. And she goes into the hallway as he follows with this sort of dish thing that's like picking up on sound waves maybe. And eventually he like drops that and grabs a camera, because this isn't some kind of like, oh, I think we caught something. This is very loud, extremely obvious, and coming at her like there's like a manifestation that you can see. It's really clear something's actually going on here. And the way that it comes at her, I really thought for a second that she was going to be possessed by whatever this was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it comes like straight at her in this way. And she kind of like, her head tilts back and she inhales in a way that feels like she got punched or something. Like there was an impact. So I kind of thought that like, uh-oh, it's in her and we just have to wait and see. And then all of a sudden she's going to start acting weird. But no, that is not the case. And then they're in the middle of this when all of a sudden there's this knocking. A knocking at the door. And he goes slowly to these huge, I'm going to say oak doors for the effect, with giant like iron door hold. What are they called? Handles. And it's shaking and there's lightning and he yanks it open thinking there's going to be a ghost and there's nothing there. But then it's a doctor. Haha, there is something there. That was a pretty good fake out too. I thought that this was going to be the ghost and it was not the ghost and I got spooked a little bit. I liked it.
They're Ghostbusters.
We're the Ghostbusters. I love how enraged he looks by the fact that he clearly got spooked also. Like, when he answers the door and the doctor pokes his head out and says boo. He looks like he wants to deck him, and he's just really trying to be cool right now because he's so mad. This is the end of the cold open. Then we go to the doom, 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 and then more thunder and lightning, and the doctor introduces himself as the doctor, and he says, "Doctor what?" And the doctor says, "If you like," and then runs past him and starts messing around with his equipment. And I think if he hadn't immediately followed up the messing of the equipment with 1,000 very obviously sincere compliments, this man would have been much more angry. But it's hard to be angry at somebody who clearly has a great idea what you do, genuinely seems to really admire everything you've done, and also seems to have access to information that they maybe shouldn't have, so that it sounds like they might be somebody important.
Yeah, he thinks he's from the ministry. Mm-hmm. Which is a good
the
assumption.
Does not disabuse him of.
Yeah.
Doctor's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
That works.
Sure.
So let's see. And then he says something about, a talented watercolorist. I forgot about that. Professor of psychology and ghost hunter. And shakes his hand. Total pleasure. And this is when Emma says, Professor Palmer actually was a POW. And I couldn't tell if she's saying that because she's like trying to hide the truth for him, like to try and put off this man that they don't know, or if he had lied to her and she wasn't aware of what he was really up to herself.
I guessed that he didn't want to admit the things that he had done in the war. Mm-hmm. And so maybe he was also a POW. But didn't tell her, what he was doing before that.
I got the impression he wasn't ever.
Okay.
And that was just an explanation for how much time he spent while he was like doing other stuff. Maybe.
I was trying to figure out.
The reason I'm confused on whether she knows is because when the doctor says, no, that was a lie told by a very brave man, but you know that because you're Emma Grayling. And I was like, well, she doesn't know that. Oh, does she know that? I got a little bit confused and I wasn't really sure. Maybe he's just assuming because he knows that they like wind up together.
I think she's
there.
I think he assumes because of her talent, her empathic psychic thing, that she can tell when people are lying. But as she explains to Clara later, that she second guesses what she thinks people might be feeling because of what she wants them to feel.
Gotcha. Okay. So
he might have been lying. She might have felt like he was lying, but then second guess herself because she wants to be close to him.
All right. I accept that. I like it.
I was trying to figure out when they mentioned U-boat, so it has to be World War II.
Yeah, that's what I assumed.
And this takes place in 1974. So I spent a lot of this episode trying to do mental math to figure out how old he's supposed to be.
How old do you think?
I'm terrible at math. I never really figured it out. But I did look up when he was, like, the real actor was born, so I could get an idea of how old he actually is. Because sometimes it's hard to tell with people. Yeah. And he was born in 1965. This was 2013 or something, so making me do math on the spot self. I don't know how old that makes him, but in his 50s.
All right. That feels like he doesn't look that old, but that's, television. It's fine.
So we can say if he's in his 50s in real life, if he's in his 50s in the 70s minus 30 years, then yeah, that tracks. Yeah. He would have been in his 20s.
So yeah, this busting in, the doctor evidently, later on, Emma says something about how you didn't come here for the ghost, you came here for me. But we are not there yet. It is being played as if he is here for the ghost. The doctor says that he is from Health and Safety. The ministry got wind of what's going on down here, sent me to check that everything's in order. And I think he says they don't have the right.
I think he was also there for the ghost.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what Emma said, but Emma might not be right.
Or it's just a happy happenstance that there's also this thing going on. But this is when we know they're in this spot. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because he jumps right into this, like, ghost thing.
Mm-hmm. As he is wont to do.
But not in a way that he doesn't approach it as if he didn't know this was going on. Which often when, you know, things are happening where they happen to show up, he's, like, figuring out what's happening on the spot. Where this, I feel like, he knew there was a ghost there. Or something. Yeah. And so he just jumps into the action. But maybe he really was just there for Emma, but he also knew that this was a time where they were here researching a ghost.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah, it's hard because sometimes I feel like the doctor, I like go back and forth on whether he knows everything or whether he's just making it up as he goes along. And sometimes it's like either or, who knows?
Sometimes it's a little of both.
Yeah.
Often it's both. He knows a lot, but he's also completely full of shit, just throwing things at the wall until it sticks, until he lands on the thing that works.
I do like how he gets very excited about the equipment that they're using.
Yeah.
Because it just makes me think of like going back in time and looking at stuff and the kinds of things that you really would just be like, oh my God, I had one of these. You know what I mean? Like those phones that are clear.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
He loves a toggle switch. He likes the word toggle.
It's a good word. It really honestly is. Like he says as a noun, it's good too. And I was kind of like, a noun. And then I was like, oh yeah, toggle is also the name of the kind of button on the front of some coats. Toggle buttons, which is really good.
I didn't know that. So when he said it's a noun, I was like, it's a noun?
Yeah.
I've never known it as a noun. But now that you say that, I know exactly what you're talking about. Right? So I must have known that
you've
thing.
Like read descriptions of coats and seen that used or something. So basically he convinces this guy, because of the information that he has, and because of the fact that he's got a piece of his own technology that he claims is top secret, he convinces him that indeed, yes, he's from the ministry, despite not really showing any real credentials. He uses the psychic paper, but that has proven to be like low-key ineffective a couple times. So I don't trust it completely anymore. But, you know, it seems to have done its job here. That's fine. So this is when he just says, where's the ghost, huh? Where is it? And grabs a candelabra of candles that are lit and says, show me the ghost. It's ghost time. And I was like, yep, this is what I'm here for. Exactly.
I wish it were just so easy to be like, show me the ghost.
I think this moment of him saying it's ghost time while holding the candelabra, I think I'm going to screenshot this and it's going to be my episode image.
Did you see my comment about last week's?
No.
I was like, this is the most unflattering picture of Matt ever.
Oh, covered in water?
Yeah, makes his chin look as big as it ever has. It's just incredibly unflattering.
I didn't really notice that. Like, look, I'm not trying to be an asshole. I just don't find him attractive in the first place. So when something's unflattering, it just looks like how he looks to me. Sorry, Matt.
He's got great hair. It's his like redeeming factor, because I don't find him attractive either. I find him compelling to look at. He's definitely got screen presence, and
yeah, most definitely.
But do I think he's hot? No. But he has really incredible hair.
Yeah. He has I mean, there's like the photo for him when you highlight his name on the, like, Amazon X-ray, his, like, celeb photo, he actually does have a look that I was like, oh, I kind of see it here, why somebody would find him attractive. It's just that I think he plays such a complete goofball in this as the Doctor, and he does look like a goofball, that those two things together, it's just too much goof. And maybe if he weren't playing into the goofiness, I might be able to sort of reserve judgment a little bit more. You know what I mean?
If he had a Twitter account, I would tweet at him and be like, it's just too much goof.
Just pull back on the goof and drop. And, but like, I don't want him to, because honestly, this is the most likable that I've found the Doctor.
Yeah.
Him playing him, because he's leaning into the goof so much. And I feel like you kind of need that for this man to not suck. So. Sorry,
David Tennant.
Yeah, look, David Tennant, you're brilliant, and I love you, but you were just such a dick. You really were, and it's fine. That's who you were for that. But I think you knew that. Maybe he didn't know that.
I don't think he did.
If I said, yeah, you were the dick doctor, which sounds really not what I meant when I say it, but, you know, do you think that he would be like, yeah, well...
I don't think that he intentionally played him to be a dick. I think he was, given what the Doctor was going through at the time, I think he was playing him to be hurting a lot, and so there was different aspects of the character that came out in a particular way. I think he's more people would say that he's the most emotional Doctor of the new series.
And some of it is, it's unclear whether or not it's his fault or the script's fault. Because the script, like, has him do dickish things.
Yes.
That no matter how you decided to play it, you're not getting around the fact that he did that shit.
Right. And, I mean, Matt Smith's Doctor has to do some dickish things, too. But definitely. He plays it in a completely different way.
Yeah. So whenever he does the dickish things, it feels much more like a toddler who chucked a knife at you because it didn't realize. You know? Right. There's a little less of the Dr. Victorious, which is, you know, the version of the Doctor that we see after the Waters of Mars. That behavior, which, you know, kind of pushes him to his end. But there was a lot of build up to that, where even Donna was like, you should not be alone. You're a very angry man. That isn't, it doesn't exist in this new Doctor. Right. So his like, when he does something that is kind of arrogant and could be taken as like, God, you're an asshole. He doesn't play it like an asshole. And he doesn't play it like, I am the smartest in the room. And that's why you should be listening to me, obviously. Yeah. He kind of does it like, I'm the smartest in the room, but I'm also like a fucking Gumby over here, so... He is fucking Gumby. Like, let's have fun with this. He really, even his face is a little Gumby-ish. It's the right shape. Yeah. You know? Wow. I never really, like... Have you mentioned Gumby with him in context before? I don't think so. I've often thought it. That just really, like, that landed for me. That's going to stick with me, I think. I like it. He's just very, you know, wiry, and his limbs are very long. His face is long. It's just very Gumby. And he's just so, like, it's like his bones are not bones. It's like he's entirely made of cartilage like a toddler. He's like made of rubber. He's just so elastic. I enjoy him. I want him to just be a physical actor. Like, stop letting me go on. Please continue. I just like to let you, like, just, you know, take it away a little bit. So this is when when Clara asks, like, because the professor man, Alec, he doesn't look like an Alec.
He doesn't look like an Alec, you're right.
I'm going to just call him the professor from now on. When he says, this is mine, about the house, she's like, wait a second. Wait, hold on. Did you just say that this house that's too haunted for anybody else to buy it, that birds won't even fly over, you gave somebody money and you said, yes, I would like to take that, please? And,
yes.
Honestly, I don't understand her being surprised by that.
Me neither.
This house is rad.
Yeah.
And, like, would I want to live here? Maybe not.
I would.
Would I want to have it? Yes.
I would totally. The first thing I asked Jason when he came to visit this apartment before we rented it, and he said that it back in the day was a brothel, I said, is it haunted? And he was like, I don't think so. And I was like, I hope it's haunted.
You say that now.
You know, I've lived in places that are haunted.
Yeah, you've lived in places that are haunted. You haven't experienced every ghost.
Not
Jamie.
every ghost.
I've got news for you. Some ghosts are dickheads.
That's true.
Some ghosts aren't even really ghosts. There's some other force being like, oh, I'm a little child.
Ugh.
Liar. Yeah, exactly. See?
But
you don't know what you're getting.
But I'm not put off by the possibility of it. It wouldn't
fair.
deter me from buying a really rad old manor that looks like it belongs in fucking Wuthering Heights or whatever. Wuthering Heights?
But what if they told you birds don't fly over it?
That's weird. Why? Why does that happen? Yeah, I would totally buy that house.
That's a thing that I wish we got a little bit more about that, because when she mentions that, we sort of just have to take it that they, like, researched the house before getting here or something. It's never mentioned in any of the, like, other dialogue.
I kind of wondered if Clara was just not exaggerating, but, like, this place is so spooky.
How spooky is it?
That birds won't even fly over it.
I feel like that could be better. If we're going to do something like, how spooky is it? It'd be like, even the vines climbing up the windows are dead. As soon as they came in contact with these bricks, they were like, I'm out. I don't know. And then she says to him, that's incredibly brave. And I was like, that doesn't feel like the right word for that, but it's fine. So, this is when the doctor takes him aside and says, we need to know what's going on here. The professor says, for the ministry, to which the doctor says, you know I can't answer that. And I was like, you fucking fuck. And then he finally says, very well, follow me. And they explain the history of this ghost and how she has been seen before the house was even ever here. She's been called all kinds of things, along with the witch in the well, even though there's no well.
Yeah.
And I think that might be part of what, like, really gets the doctor realizing, like, how long this has been going on. Like, if there was a well on the property. Like, it's been so long that this has been happening. I don't know.
But also, like, the professor has gotten pretty much every record of this area, this land that this house is on, going as far back as he can find it. And there's no record whatsoever of a well ever being on the property.
So, what is that about? Do we ever get an explanation about that?
The doctor does say something about he references it later. I can't remember the exact words that he calls it, but because she turns out not to be a ghost so much as a time traveler, and what people are experiencing is, for her, split second that's still sort of happening, like the time is just, for her, stretched out over hundreds of our years, that what the well is kind of maybe that's that like disc that starts floating that we see.
The wormhole?
Yeah. Like they see that as a well. Like maybe people hundreds of years ago saw that and didn't have words for what it was to them, so they called it a well. When you get to that part, because I don't have the exact words that he said, but he does reference it.
Okay. Okay. So we have a little bit of tea time with the doctor drinking milk straight out of the bottle. Really rude. It's everybody's milk, doctor. Can you please just not? And he says that empathics are the most compassionate people you will ever meet because they have to experience all this terrible guilt and sadness, and Clara has to tell him to shut the fuck up because he's clearly making poor Emma uncomfortable. And we get to see a lot of the photos of this ghost, which are really creepy. Mm-hmm. I really enjoy, in particular, the one that they show more than once, where it looks like her mouth is like 2 feet long.
Yeah.
That was really creepy. This show doesn't actually creep me out almost ever. But that one really, that was like... And they clearly knew they had a winner with that one because they went back to it a couple times and they were like, yeah, that's the one. That's freaky. And during the war, American airmen stationed here left offerings of tinned spam. The tins were found in 1965, bricked up in the wall, along with notes, appeals to the gassed, for the love of God, stop screaming.
Yeah.
That's and they say that, and then they cut to that fucking mouth picture. I'm looking at it right now. I have it on pause. I'm sending it to Jamie, even though she knows what it looks like because she watched this episode. But I just need to remind you, Jamie, what the fuck this looks like. I love that I'm sending this to you, and there's a picture of you as Britney Spears in our chat right now. But anyway, here's the thing, and it's just so alarming.
Yeah.
I low-key want to use this for the episode, but the doctor holding a candelabra saying it's ghost time is so good.
It also looks, because it's such a quick shot, it looks a little too much like the Scream mask.
Oh, you ruined it.
I'm sorry.
It's all done. Never mind.
When you see it in a still like that, and you can really look at it, that's what it makes me think of. I'm sorry.
We just watched the 4th Scream movie last night.
What'd you think? It's pretty good.
Oh, it's... What?
I thought it was fun.
Ugh.
I saw it in the theater. But I had no expectations for it because I really loved the first 2 Scream movies. I didn't like the 3rd one. And so I thought that the 4th one was just going to be garbage, and it ended up being fun. But I don't remember anything about it.
I got so mad.
Really?
Yeah, I just hated it. I hated it so much.
I'll have to rewatch it then.
And mostly I think it's because one of like the main players is a really bad actor. Basically, the person who winds up being the killer.
Who was it?
I think is like... Do you want me to spoil Scream 4, everybody?
I mean, this movie's been out for like 15 years.
It's her like little cousin who's trying to take her place as the survivor girl.
Oh, wasn't that, was it Hayden Panettiere? No.
No. Although she is in it and she looks amazing. Ugh, her skin. She's always like glowing, like bronzed and... Ugh.
I'm going to look up the cast right now.
No, it's not her. I don't know the actress because I don't know if she's been in anything else, but I didn't recognize her.
Okay, I'm going to look.
And she is so terrible. She's real bad. So, and we kind of had called that it was her as well. So that got a little bit like, that was part of it, was that it felt like, yeah, okay.
Do you remember what Kristen Bell is in this movie? I had like a debate like 2 days ago.
She is for a second at the beginning, yeah.
Do you remember?
She is in one of the Stab movies.
Right. Do you remember what the character's name was? The cousin?
No. But she looks like Kristen Stewart.
Oh.
She's got the same dark, like pale,
Is
ordinary sort of look.
Was it Trudy or was it Sherry?
I don't know.
Both of those actresses are not very good, so
Okay.
I could see that.
But yeah, we watched all 4 Scream movies over the past couple weeks. And this, like, the 4th one was by far for me the one that was the hardest to finish. It was just really rough. But anyway, now that you've said that this looks like the Scream mask, it's way less scary. And now it's ruined. Thanks, Jamie. So I'm going to move on.
I do apologize.
So at this point...
Oh my god, it's Emma Roberts.
Who's Emma Roberts? Is the killer girl?
Yeah. Emma Roberts,
what
who's
else?
Julia Roberts' niece, who's in like all of the American Horror Story.
Oh, all right. Well, I hope she got better because she was not good.
She didn't.
Oh dear, that's too bad. Yeah, I'm looking at her lineup here, and it's a lot of like things I've never heard of. Yeah, well, that's what you get when you have a famous actor in your family, I guess.
Her dad's also a famous actor, so.
So at this point, something like runs across the doorway behind them, and Clara turns and like, it's one of those things where it's not like she really saw something. It's not like she's going, there was something there. What? But she just feels like there's like a flicker and she turns and there's nothing. And so she's just like, oh, okay, it's fine. Nothing was there.
Mm-hmm.
And as somebody who has that happen so often, I really hate seeing that in movies. I get, especially, oh man, when I went to the gym late a couple of times, and when you go at certain hours, it's 24 hours. There's not a soul there. They don't even have any staff. And I would just walk in initially like, fuck yeah, I have this whole place to myself. And then there's mirrors on every wall and all the equipment's reflective. And so everything I did, I was like, what? Yeah, who's there? It was like I couldn't do anything without thinking somebody was standing there. Somebody had just walked in. Somebody had just walked by. It was awful. I couldn't focus. I was just like completely paranoid the whole time. And at home it'll happen. And I think a lot of the time it's cats. That's what you tell yourself when you have cats. You can just be like, it was nothing. It was the cats.
Yeah.
So that helps sometimes.
Whenever something, it usually is the cats are doing it. Jason and I are like, paranormal.
So that goes by, and then we go back to the doctor asking, where is the well? A copy of the oldest plan we could find shows no well in the schematic. There's no well on the property that we could find. And another crash of thunder and lightning. And the doctor says, all right, Clara, come on, let's go. We're going to find the ghosts. And Clara's like, I don't want to do that. No, I like it here where there's light and warmth and people. And you want me to go into the dark, cold parts of the house. And he's like, yes, I do. And winds up, she tells him to dare her because then she knows that she'll do it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of cute, actually. I like that.
And he says, I dare you, no takesies, backsies.
Yes. And they go into this room, the music room, which Emma says is the heart of the house. And he discovers this cold spot and is making a circle on the floor just as it really starts to like accelerate. Is accelerate the word I want? When they first get there, Clara's like, I feel like I'm being watched. And the longer they stand there, the longer she's like, no, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And she says something to the doctor about, do you feel like you're being watched? And he's like, what does that feel like? Is that all the hairs raising on the back of your neck? And she's like, yep. And he's like, yes, I do. I really, really do. There's nothing like that feeling. It's such a strange, like, you guys know, you park, you're behind somebody at a light. Or off to the left or right of them, but slightly behind them. You're not in their field of view, really. You stare at them long enough, they will know. They will turn and look at you. You guys have had that, I'm sure, where somebody's been looking at you and you turn and you make accidental eye contact because you turned and looked, not even necessarily really knowing that's why you were turning and looking. Something just told you to turn and look. And there's that person like glaring at you or just staring, kind of like probably thinking about what they're going to make for dinner tonight, but they just happen to be staring at you. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I find that to be a real, like, freaky thing. You know, it's like there's an actual physical pressure to people's gaze.
Yeah.
That's super weird.
It is weird. I wonder, I mean, there must be something in our biology that makes us notice that. And it's gotta go back to, like, when we were prey of some kind. Definitely.
So as she is beginning to get more and more agitated and the doctor is busy with drawing this circle, there is this like weird clicking sound that's coming from one side of the room. And Clara basically is like, she can't exactly see anything. She just says, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
And he says no and turns and leaves. And I'm like, sir, you got to stop doing that. He keeps doing that. Stop leaving your companions behind without saying anything to them. All you need to do for me to not be annoyed by this is go, come on. That's it. Just a come on. Just a signal that you are aware they're still there. Because it just feels like he forgets about them all of a sudden. You know what I mean?
I think he kind of does.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't appreciate it.
He just gets so fixated on what he's trying to figure out.
Yep.
And so he just like turns and walks away and it's like, well, wait, but I just said I'm not happy.
I'm a person who spoke to you just now. And as they leave, there's this weird sort of force that comes up out of the circle. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's meant to be like the beginnings of the wormhole. Because the wormhole doesn't appear there. It's in the sitting room area that they're in.
Well, it is revealed at the end that there's another one of these creatures that's in this house.
Right, true.
So I wonder if
that was it?
Yeah, if maybe it like isn't always visible and it's trying to manifest itself. Because the fact that there's this cold spot and he draws a circle and anywhere outside of that circle the temperature's normal and then it's cold inside the circle. Like from what I know about ghosts, usually when there's a cold spot, it's because a ghost is right there.
Okay, so the circle, and you said usually cold spot means that there is a ghost right there.
Usually, like in all of the ghost stories I've heard or from the people I know who actually like look for ghosts as a living, there's a temperature difference. And usually that means that there's something there. That's why they look for those temperature anomalies.
So you think that it is the weird, disjointed creature monster?
It's the only thing I can think, since we know it's not... This girl that they rescue is not actually a ghost.
Right.
So that's what I assumed, like, after watching it a couple of times. Like, oh, maybe that's this creature that's in the house that they never really see. Like, maybe it can't completely manifest itself all the time.
It didn't even occur to me that that thing was able to, like, be incorporeal.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird that there's this circle where it's cold and it never really factors in again. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that it doesn't factor in. Because,
I don't either. That's why I made up my own, what could this possibly be?
Well, I'm just saying, like, as somebody who frequently is like, come on, what is this? Because I get really annoyed when stuff happens that then doesn't seem to matter at all. I freely admit, I just think that's cool looking.
Yeah.
And I just like it. And that's just enough because I like ghosties and things for me to be like, it's fine. And I understand that that's double standard. And I'm fine with it.
Well, sometimes I guess it depends on the context of the story. Like sometimes it's okay for it to be like, well, we never go back to that. It's sort of a dropped thread. But in a ghost story, that's kind of okay.
Yeah, I think that's part of it is that like, this feels a little bit more this is the kind of story that I am much more ready to let there be loose ends. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't bother me quite as much. And there are other stories where it feels like they are trying to give explanations for a lot of things that it doesn't really work for me. But this one, I just like, because I'm most of the time prepared for ghost stories to not have all the answers. Mm-hmm. I think I was just more willing to sit with that this time. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. I did find a transcript, so I can answer the Witch of the Well thing.
Oh, cool.
It's a wormhole. It's later on, we'll get to it, where he's like hooking himself to a harness to jump through. He says, see the Witch of the Well. It's a wormhole, a reality well, a door to the echo universe.
Ah, okay.
So if this was popping up, say, 400 years ago, you have no context of what you're seeing. Mm-hmm. And all you can compare it to is like when you look down a well.
Okay. Yeah, I accept that. That's cool. I mean, it doesn't really look like that when it's like spinning around. It looks like a dish or something, I would think would be really what you would call it.
It cracks open.
It does, but it looks like a plate breaking. Like there's cracks in it. You know what I mean?
But then you can see in it. And it's
true.
And it's
true.
Deep. So, Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. Meanwhile, as all of this is happening, the professor is like, doing his thing with trying to make sense of the data that's coming in through his little sensors and talking to Emma. And she's like, I know how you feel about me, and tries to take his hand. And he's like, I have work to do. And she's like, ah. And eventually he has to just be like, don't you dare do this thing that might kill you because you matter a lot to me. Mm-hmm. But it takes a while for us to get there because he is unwilling to engage on that level with her. It's unclear to me what the problem is, if it's so much like that he doesn't want to ruin their working relationship, if it's because he's just like afraid that he doesn't deserve this because he's done bad things.
I think that's it.
But yeah, it's believable, whatever it is. There's a kind of thing with this sort of, we mustn't get involved, where it can feel really like, whatever. But
no, I think
there's something about his character that I'm like, yeah, no, he would be like this.
he's very repressed and closed off and living with this guilt for what he did in the war, and probably doesn't think he deserves somebody as good as her.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, just like, get over it, man. You know what I'm saying? Literally, just stop being like that. I feel like that's the pep talk you need. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Clara get their little candelabra blown out. Mm-hmm. Which really sounds like some sort of weird euphemism, but I swear it's literally what happens. And there's like these pounding noises. And I really love the Doctor. She says it's a very loud noise. He says it's a very loud noise. It's a very angry noise. She says, what's making it? He says, I don't know. Are you making it? And then it just happens again, and he, like, does a little, and, like, jumps over to her. And it's very fun because the Doctor is so rarely scared in this sort of way that I really enjoyed seeing it. He'll be startled by things in general, or he'll be like, oh, this alien is very formidable and you guys were in danger. But this sort of, like, genuine doesn't have an explanation at all for what he's hearing and she is also hearing doesn't happen often. And it's fun to watch him get spooked like he's walking through one of those, like, Halloween walkthroughs. And she says, I may be a teeny tiny bit terrified, but I'm still a grown-up. There's no need to hold my hand. And he holds his hands up and says, I'm not holding your hand. And then they look behind them. And there's nothing there until the light flashes from the, what do you call it? Lightning. And then you see something, like, on the ground. And it's really unclear what it even is. I actually had to rewind and I still missed it. I rewound twice. And it wasn't until later that they do this again. And I was like, oh, that time I saw it. But this time I was really like, and it also looked perspective-wise like it was really far away from her. And I was like, how is that thing holding your hand all the way from there? Nevertheless, I do like the whole, I'm not holding your hand. Oh my God, who's holding my hand kind of thing, you know? I think that's a fun bit. It's very cliche, but it's, like, cliche for a reason because it works. And once they run away back to the main room, they get there just in time to see the, basically record spinning in the air and beginning to crack. And as they are distracted with that, they are missing what's happening with Emma because she is, like, looking in another direction and seeing this white glowing figure in the woods. And it's, like, got its arm out and is slowly turning toward her and screaming and just yells, help me. And then the Doctor grabs a camera as he finally realizes and takes a photo, and she faints. And as all of that is happening, there is help me written on the wall. Now, again, that doesn't really make any sense. Help me being written on the wall. How did that woman do that?
I'm okay with it.
You know, that's fine. Let's just let it go, everybody. It's fine. And then the wormhole, like, disappears. So it's sort of like the wormhole created the ability for her to see, for Emma to see where this woman actually is. Except she's looking in a totally different direction. She's not looking into the wormhole and seeing this at the bottom of the wormhole. And I found that a little confusing. She's looking out into space, like, just off to some other side.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
just found it really weird how disconnected those two things seemed, but they clearly were connected because of, like, what we wind up doing later to travel into it and the fact that once the wormhole disappears, her vision disappears. But I didn't really understand why they didn't just have her be able to see that in the wormhole.
Maybe it projects things out. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I know that a lot of the point is that she's able to see something that other people can't. But you could still just have that happen in the wormhole and nobody else can see it, and she does. But regardless, we then go to the scene with her and Clara where she's being given booze and does not like it and says that she would really rather just have a cup of tea.
Yep.
And the Doctor and the Professor, who are bonding in the dark room. The dark room, which Krista, I believe, shared a meme of a bunch of Xennials puzzling over that weird red room in Stranger Things where he's, like, dipping photos in liquid, and what are they doing? does anybody understand what that room is for and why the light is red like that? What are they doing in there? I'm old.
Yeah, it makes you feel really old.
I'm old.
I took a photography class in college, and one of my favorite things was developing the pictures myself in the darkroom. I still don't understand how those chemicals work. I never understood that, but I really loved standing there and watching these pictures that I took appear on the paper. And it's strange to me that there are human beings in this world who have no idea the concept of a photograph.
Yep.
Like a physical photograph.
It is... There's just so many things that I don't really think about being like left by the wayside. And I'm realizing like, oh yeah, that's just going to happen, I guess. As time goes on, we're just going to sort of
it's like
lose some things.
How we might see something on like Deadwood where they, take a daguerreotype.
Right, exactly.
And you watch it and you're like, God, you have to sit there that's why people didn't smile. Because they had to sit for so long for that picture to be taken. And that's just like, no, it's quick. But we've come so far just from that. And now there's just like no photo developing at all.
I'm sure that, there are some photographers that cling to like the classics wave.
Yeah, my friend Kevin is a professional photographer, and he takes a lot of pictures for like magazine covers and stuff. Mm-hmm. But he also just takes his own artistic photos that aren't of people, and he still develops them in his darkroom and makes prints of them and puts them in galleries and sells them. But it's like an old art form now.
Mm. Yeah, I just, it's not like, the world moves on and that's fine.
I just think it's funny.
It is sort of sad to be to be there to like watch things get lost.
Yeah.
People
not understanding that you could actually have a landline in your house.
When I was your age, the internet came in the mail. Literally, we got discs with hours on them.
I've been watching *Halt and Catch Fire*. I don't know if you've ever watched that.
Never heard of it.
Oh, it's good. It's on Netflix. It was an AMC show. It's got Lee Pace in it. You can start with season 2 because season 1 is weird. Kind of boring. But it gets good. And in the second season, there's a character who gets a second phone line so we can be on the internet and get phone calls. And it's like 1986 or so. 1985, so like very early on in modems and stuff. And like he's so excited. I got the extra phone line so that now you can do your work and be on the internet, but we can still get our phone calls. And I just started laughing like it wasn't that long ago. When I first got my own computer at home, in my own apartment, I was in my 20s. It was still dial-up.
God, I just like really wanted my parents so bad to invest in a second landline. Mm-hmm. And they just wouldn't do it because we don't use the internet that much. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
And I remember being really like frustrated talking to my friend about how I don't understand. We use phone lines in order to talk on the phone. But now we have cell phones. So clearly you can send a phone signal through the air. So why don't we just have wireless internet? We should just have it. That should be a thing because clearly there's the technology for the phone thing and we're using the same thing. And then like 3 years later, it started to be a thing. And I was like, ha ha, score. I was like so excited about it.
My ex, I think this was in like 99 or so. He was like, someday we're going to have phones where we can like watch things on it, like watch videos and watch movies and everything will be able to be on your phone in your pocket. And I was like, that can never happen. How are you going to make something small enough to have it be small enough to even be in your pocket? Phones can't be that small. Like, I didn't have the vision. And when the iPhone came out, I was like, that son of a bitch. How did he know?
Yep. I remember being actively angry about it. Like, I felt like it's clearly there. Like, we're right on the edge. Why don't we just have this by now? And I think about it now and I'm just like, oh, just needed to be patient, sweetie. They were working on it. It's fine. Chill.
It's really incredible, all the things that we have lived through technology-wise in our short lifespans.
Yeah.
That I can look back on things when I was a kid, things that you see in, Stranger Things, and you're like, oh my God.
Right.
And I'm like, no, that was life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you really only had 3 channels on your television, guys.
Yeah, I was talking about that, and I don't remember what I was recording, but that I lived alone, and I lived in a building that there was no Wi-Fi. I didn't have the money to pay for internet. I didn't have the money to pay for cable. And back in those days, I went out a lot more, and I was in better shape. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that there was, and I'm not trying to say that like technology is bad and it just like, is unhealthy or anything. I think it's just a byproduct of there being a lot more at your fingertips that you don't have to go out and get.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a meme going around about somebody who was like talking to a kid who wanted to know how, when they were in college, they would get notifications that classes were canceled. And they were like, well, you went to class. And then there was a sign that said, sorry, class is canceled. And they were like, so you had to get up and get dressed thinking that you still had class and walk all the way there and then find out? And they're like, yeah, we did. Well, how did you like sign up for projects and share stuff? Well, there would be like a sheet pinned to a corkboard.
Yeah.
And you would like write your name on it. And then somebody would collect all of those. And usually there were phone numbers and they would call and they were like, call? Just strangers would call you about homework? And I was just, once they said it like that, I was like, yeah, that sucked. Like, well, I'm not trying to act like our way was better, kid. I promise.
What about, there was no caller ID until like the mid to late 90s. Like, caller ID was something that people with money had.
Yeah.
And you had to have an answering machine. I thought I was so high tech when I got voicemail that I could call my house and put in a code on my phone and listen to my messages instead of having to wait until I got home to see if somebody had called me back or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
We've come a long way, but we've also made it so much easier for people to be shitty quicker. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. It just was wild when they were like saying it like this. I really realized that like, I knew it sucked at the time too. That's the other thing. It wasn't even just as simple as like, well, we didn't know any better. We kind of did. We kind of were like, oh, there should be a better way to do this. It wasn't like we would show up to class, see the sign that says there's no class and be like, it would be great if I didn't get my ass out here. Mm-hmm. Like we weren't happy with things how they were. It was just, there was no other option really.
I wish I could remember what it was like when I was in elementary school and we would have snow days. Because when I was in 5th grade, I lived with my dad and we lived in Cranston, but I went to school in Warwick because I went to school at the school that was near my grandparents' house. They just didn't know I had moved. And so I would have to get driven to school every morning. I don't know how I ever found out about snow days, but it's not like I went to school.
I mean, usually for us, it was on the TV.
I guess that's probably true.
The banner underneath the news. They would always just sit and watch.
But I was a little kid, so for me it was like, oh, no, you don't have to go to school today. It's a snow day. And then I would just throw on my snowsuit and run outside.
Yep.
Make a tunnel in the snow.
Ah, the best. Snow days. Good stuff.
It was really great when you're a kid. Not so great as an adult.
Oh, for sure. Unless you happen to work one of those jobs that you get snow days too, which most people don't.
I've had one since I've been here where the snow was bad enough here. It was really icy. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to work.
Do what you want to me.
And
it's not happening.
I stayed home. But usually as an adult, your snow day consists of having to scoop all the snow up and get out. Mm-hmm. Not fun.
No, that's one thing that I try and convince Owen of because he wants to live somewhere where there's snow. And I'm like, I don't have anything against the snow. But I know you, babe, personally, will find it charming for the first 2 or 3 inches. Mm-hmm. And then after that, you were going to be very fucking annoyed.
My aunt bought my dad a snowblower as like a Christmas gift. And he was like, why? Why? And then he started using it. He's like, oh, this is great. You can get out of your driveway so fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad was kind of the same way. He resisted getting a snowblower for a long time. And then when he did, it was like his favorite toy. He loved using that thing.
My dad too. He loves, now he goes down the street. And he just like clears off the neighbors' driveways and the sidewalk. He loves it.
Dads, am I right? All right. So where are we? They're developing photos. These two are talking about him having feelings for her. And obviously, like, you know, just being very withdrawn and weird about it. And this is when, Emma asks her, what about you and the doctor? And she says, oh, I don't think so. And she says, good. And Clara says, sorry? And she says, don't trust him. There's a sliver of ice in his heart. And I was like, I mean, we've been knowing. Mm-hmm. But Clara didn't. And she starts to feel that a little bit later on.
Yep.
So the two of them hurry out to the TARDIS as the doctor performs this experiment, which is basically going to the formation of the Earth to the present and beyond, and taking a photo from the same angle at the same place every time, mm-hmm. and adding them up until they get a photo of this woman who is like trapped in this pocket world. And Clara is extremely disturbed by the fact that he doesn't seem to realize looking at the death of the planet is traumatic for her. Mm-hmm. And it just doesn't even occur to him that this is something that would bother her. She really... It's just, you know, he is so emotionally disconnected from what this is like for the reality of somebody who doesn't time travel like this the way that he does. She's not immune to it. And so for her, she's looking at her planet completely dead, basically. And it just hasn't occurred to him that this would bother her. And it's kind of a weird moment.
Well, Rose also had a moment like this. Because
with the first watching of the planet?
Yeah. In that first episode where she travels with the doctor, he takes her to the end of the Earth.
Right.
And she has a hard time with it, even though she knows this is billions and billions of years in the future. But that's her home. And now it's gone. And how do you wrap your head around that? And Clara says the same thing. Like, have we just watched the entire life cycle of the Earth? And he's all excited. Yeah. And she's like... Yeah,
he's like, what a treat, right?
Yeah. And she's like, and you're okay with that? And he says, and I mean, less enthusiastically, yes. And she doesn't understand because he's a time traveler. So he sees the birth and death of things. And for him, as she says, like, this is just an instant to you. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's because he watched the death of his own planet or
Maybe.
or all those things combined. But when she says we're just ghosts to you, I really like that, because it's a good way of explaining, like, he cares about the companions that he's with. He gets sad when he loses them for whichever reason, that they die or they get taken by the angels or they decide to stay. But ultimately, he's just traveling in time. He's going to meet new people. And when he dies, he regenerates.
Yep.
So death, the concept of death, it's completely foreign to him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting how, like, upset this makes her. I mean, I appreciate it. I don't know how I would react in her shoes. They have, like, done so much weird traveling.
Well, she's new to this.
Yeah, I mean, but they have, like, a couple. I mean, also, there's versions of her that this is not that version as well. So I have to keep that in mind as well.
Right. For her, she's gone to that weird planet, the Akatan thing, and ended up on an undersea submarine in the 1980s on Earth. And where else? That's it, right?
Yeah, I guess that's it.
So for her, it's like, yeah, but, like, sure, I'm long dead, but this is making me have to think about the fact that I'm going to die someday, and that everything doesn't go on forever, including the planet I live on.
Yeah.
Like, how do you wrap your head around that? I would have a hard time with it.
Yeah. It's just, it just doesn't feel like in context it would matter to me, because it's like, I'm going to be dead for billions of years by the time this has happened. So,
but if you saw it all happen in a quick succession like she just did, it would be jarring. Like, you can understand it in theory, but then to experience it, it's like, wait, what the fuck?
It would be jarring. I'm just not sure I would be as upset at him over it the way that she is. And I'm fine with her being upset at him, because he deserves more people to be more upset at him more of the time than actually happens. So I am not going to be, I'm not mad about the fact that this is the spot where somebody is drawing the line. But it did come as a bit of a surprise to me, because I just didn't really feel like, personally, I would have this reaction.
Okay.
But like I said, it's fine. And then they go in the house and he shows them the photos that he has put together of this woman. And he figures out who she is also. Her name is Hilla Tokorian, and she is a pioneer, a time traveler, and she wound up in this pocket world by accident, and the time for her is, like, much more stretched out. So it's only been for her 3 minutes that she has crash landed, which honestly is very merciful. Mm-hmm. That's nice. Only 3 minutes? Not bad. Could deal with that, Okay. And they are like, well, what is she running from? And he's like, all right, well, let's see. And when he does the thing and shows this image, there's, like, this weird fucking thing behind her that looks almost like a dinosaur in this, like, very out of focus, strange shot. Mm-hmm. This thing that's chasing her is so much scarier than it looks in that picture. Mm-hmm. It deserved better than that. It deserved a better shot, because it was truly one of the creepiest things ever. What the fuck? And it's, like, crawling around on the floor. Like, there was a story that I read for Unspooked, I think last year or the year before. And it was this like woman with her family on a hike, and she was with a friend's son and daughter. And the daughter was very young. She was like 6, and the son, I think, was around like 12. He was getting to that age where he's too cool to do anything with family and just wants to like not be around parents and stuff. And they were walking in the woods, and she saw, it was like near Gettysburg. And she saw this shadow that looked like somebody doing one of those army crawls along the ground. And she noticed it and thought that it was just somebody like messing around, because there were a lot of hikers in that area. And then she started to notice that it was like kind of coming at them. And the more she looked at it, the more she was like, that's not a person. Like, there's no features to it. And nobody else had seen it. And she started to kind of like rush them a little. And eventually the little boy saw it himself. And she said that he looked genuinely scared, and he like held his little sister's hand and started running. And she was like, that kid hadn't taken his sister's hand since he was like 7 years old. And as they were heading out, they were behind this car that came to a screeching halt, and they almost rear-ended the car. And when they went and checked to see if everything was okay, the driver was like, yeah, I'm so sorry. Somebody just like crawled across the road. And that was all I could think with this, was this like crawling thing. It's like whatever ghost or whatever that thing was at Gettysburg, like following them. Ugh. And it's like way creepier than that, as it turns out, when you actually see it. But
I wonder if that was a ghost of a Civil War soldier.
Yeah, like there's a lot of stuff in that area. That podcast Spooked has a story from somebody who like went and did not take shit seriously at all. And basically like her husband was telling her to shut the fuck up. And she was like, whatever, let's have a ghost come home with us. Who cares? And then it seemed like something did come home with them. And she feels like a real asshole now because it's been a problem. But yeah, so this thing, I don't like it. And the doctor is basically like, so we're going to need you, Emma, to create this like wormhole with your mind and open up a entry into the pocket universe. And I will rappel in and save this woman. And then you guys can pull us back out again. And the reason that the TARDIS can't go in is because it is a pocket universe, is that it will like have entropy that will drain her power sources. Which, whatever. They just can't let him use the TARDIS because that's too easy. So truly, this is such a weird thing. They create this wormhole. She's wearing this like diadem of Ravenclaw tiara. And they drop the doctor through, and the pocket world is like in black and white, sort of. It's not entirely actually black and white.
It's just
but it's
very
really
muted,
washed out. Yeah. And he has to run around and find her. And there's this moment that drove me nuts where he's like, 2 minutes, no time, complete sentences, abandoned planet. And he just starts running, and she says, wait. And then just says, there's something in the mist. To which I'm like, yeah, bitch. Duh. Did you not hear him? There's something in the mist chasing you. And this man is saying the planet, like, let's go. And you're like, wait. Something's chasing me. What the fuck? How are you given this mission? How are you the pioneer? Use your fucking head, lady. Come on. Oh, it drove me fucking crazy. And he says, then run. And I'm like, duh. I got very mad at her with this one, let me tell you. Just literally, hold on. He's chasing me with a chainsaw. Like, why would you stop? what are you thinking? So anyway, he has gotten lost. He has lost his sense of direction. Meanwhile, Emma is trying to hold this shit open. And as he's heading in the totally wrong way, she like somehow creates a version of the house in the pocket world with her mind, I guess. Is that right?
Kind of, yeah.
Because he says something about how like
she keeps calling him to go home, to come home. So she creates so that it's like a physical manifestation of this is what you need to run towards.
Okay. So they get to the spot and he is able to put her in the harness and he says he'll come up next, but Emma can't hold on quite long enough. And the doctor doesn't make it up before the portal closes and he's just like left in the woods with this thing. And it's kind of a cool effect, this one moment where he's standing in the house and he sort of knows what's going to happen and he takes one step forward and the house just vanishes. Yeah. And he's in the woods again. I like that. And the woods are really cool looking. They're like super foggy and there's moss on everything. I don't know if these are real woods or if they're set woods.
It's real woods.
But they look pretty cool. I liked them. And meanwhile, Clara basically is like, Emma, I know that you're dying and everything, but you need to do that again. And I was like, Clara, girl. But also, you know, I get it. They time traveled. She needs a doctor so that she can go home again also. There's also that.
Especially since the TARDIS doesn't want to let her in.
Oh, yeah, that's true. She says something to him about how it doesn't like her, and he says that it's like a cat.
Yeah.
And it'll warm up to her eventually. So she goes running to the TARDIS, and it won't let her in. And there's this weird moment where she calls it a grumpy old cow.
Yep.
And then turns around, and there is a copy of her standing there. And the TARDIS is like, oh, yeah, we created a manifestation of somebody that would be, like, easy for you to communicate with.
It says, I'm programmed to select the image of a person you esteem. Of several billion such images in my database, this one best meets the criterion. Which is some shade.
That is some shade, and it doesn't feel like the Clara that we know.
We don't know her that well.
Yeah, I guess we don't. But it's just such an odd thing because it just, for us, doesn't feel true.
Right.
So I'm just like, wow.
She seems really sweet and like not, she's curious, but she's not like impetuous and like running off on her own the way like Rose always did, and Amy did. She doesn't seem like a terrible person, but the TARDIS is like, I don't know about this one.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, it did this, the TARDIS did this with the Doctor before and manifested little Amy.
Oh, that's right. I forgot it did that.
And that was because this was somebody that was going, it like flashed through other companions and that was very upsetting to him. So when it was young Amy, he was able to communicate with it a little bit better. With Clara, what the TARDIS has such a low opinion of her that she's like, yeah, the only person you seem to respect is you.
Damn. Damn. Cold-blooded.
Yeah. And I think calling the TARDIS a cow is not helpful, Clara.
True.
Just FYI. Maybe, like, give her a gentle little pat and be like, okay, I'm sorry. I know I've been a little bratty, I guess.
At this point, she tells the TARDIS, let's go. And the TARDIS is like, I'll be dead in 10 seconds. And she says to the TARDIS, you're talking, but all I hear is meh, 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 meh.
Yeah.
Bitch, do you fucking know what position you're in right now? You're asking for a favor. How about don't take that tone?
Yeah.
But she does. And then the TARDIS disappears. The TARDIS manifestation. And meanwhile, back in the house, Emma and Professor and Gila are getting that wormhole opened again. Clara eventually gets the door of the TARDIS to open. And it's a weird thing that it opens right then because she's been kind of a dick just now. But evidently it worked. And we see the doctor running around in the woods as Clara is in the TARDIS and it's like shaking and lights are going and apparently it just decided to go anyway, despite the fact that it said it would die and it does not seem to like her, but it went anyway. And the doctor is yelling at this thing, "You just want me to be afraid. You're the boogeyman under the bed. You feed on the fear." And there's all this like spooky laughing and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it really is pretty good. And it's weird that later on he's like, "Oh, well, it just wants to get back to its mate." Because this doesn't feel like that lines up with that, Doc. You seem pretty sure your assessment here. But is it just that he's afraid of it and so he's assigning that to it?
Yeah. Maybe it doesn't know how to express itself in a way that doesn't come off as threatening because it looks the way it does.
Because it's so freaky looking. It looks like somebody made like a skeleton out of silly putty and then just yanked on parts of it.
The description in this transcript is, it looks like it's made of melted wax.
Yep. There you go. So eventually, he gets saved by the TARDIS and they appear in the house and poor Emma put herself through that for nothing. Well, I don't think that's true. I'm not sure, but I think the impression is supposed to be that Emma connecting and creating the wormhole was what let the TARDIS go through at all.
I think so.
But it does feel like she didn't need to put herself through that. Like that was just how it felt to me when I was watching that scene. But I don't think that's true. And then we jump ahead in time and it's daylight and the doctor is talking to Emma. And when she says, "You came here for me," he says, "Yes, I need to ask you something. What's the deal with Clara?" And she's like, "What's the deal? She's a girl who's very pretty and very ordinary." And he doesn't like that answer at all. Also very clever and more scared than she lets on. And that's it, is it? And she says, "Why? Is that not enough?" And he gets a weird look on his face like he doesn't know how to answer her.
Mm-hmm. Well, because he thinks that there is a mystery about her because he's run into two other versions of her, but those could be just descendants, ancestors. They just look exactly alike, have the same name, ish. I mean, Oswin was not,
right.
Like, her name was not Clara, but I mean, I understand why he's like, there's got to be something to this girl, but now here's Emma saying, "No, she's just a girl." Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like, the doctor is treating Emma like she's like a witch or something. She's just an empath, like, psychic. Like, that's not, it's weird to try and come and find her out of everybody.
Well, I guess he was hoping that she would sense something in Clara that would tell him that she's more than human or less than human or not a human. But instead, she's like, what? She's a girl.
Sucks to suck, Doc. So we see this moment between Emma and Gila. And I swear to God, I forgot all about the professor and was like, "Oh my God, are these two going to hook up?" But no, they are not, because they are related.
Yep.
As it turns out.
This is not Game of Thrones.
Yeah. But there is such chemistry between them. Like, they should date in real life. Just saying. And let's see. Oh, right. The doctor says something about how she's your great-great-great-granddaughter. And they're just like, "Wait, what? Oh, okay." He just like dropped a bomb on them thinking that they had figured it out already. Why would they have figured that out already, Doctor? Why? Why do you think that? And somehow thinking about the two of them mating gives him the idea that the creature in the pocket world is trying to get back with the creature that is here that they have seen. And this is the one part of the episode that I was like, this doesn't work for me. It doesn't matter as much, so it's fine. But it's really a stretch that didn't need to be there, and I don't really get it. But it's fine. So he goes back into the pocket world. He tells Emma again that she needs to do this, which really, can we just leave her alone? The poor thing. And he goes and like tells this thing to come on out. I'll take you to your girl. And we finally get to like really see it. And it's awful. Ugh. It's so awful. It looks like what a misting would look like, I think. Those of you who read Mistborn. And I don't want him to bring that thing to our world.
Yeah,
kids.
why didn't he
Why
bring
is he doing this?
the other thing to that?
To the pocket world.
Because the pocket world is collapsing, and so he's trying to save.
Let them die together in each other's arms, and there'll be a resolution of the happy end. But like this thing, what is it doing in our world now? He doesn't know anything about it. He called it a boogeyman that feeds on fear 2 minutes ago. And now he's like, yeah, but it could totally live here. Sir. He's even like, yeah, it could totally live here because it wants to mate and have babies. Sir!
Maybe this is the reason why billions of years from now the Earth dies.
You know? Like, I don't think he's really thinking through the thing that he is setting into motion here. Christ. And the episode just ends there. It ends there. And I was sitting there staring like, what? And that's it. That's the end of the episode. And I don't know what to think. Weird ending. Real weird ending, guys. But here we are.
I agree that the ending was strange and felt out of place. It would have been fine to end it with, like, before he's like, oh, like when they're just outside and the revelation that the professor and Emma end up together and this is their descendant. And like, I would have been fine with that being the end.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't need this little extra bit of adventure.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of was like, okay, well, the thing that they've been seeing around, it's like a manifestation of that thing from another dimension coming through, or from the pocket world coming through, just like she was able to come through somehow, you know?
Yeah.
That felt like a perfectly fine explanation. But they just went and overcomplicated it for no reason and brought something into our universe, like, fully. In a way that why would you just do that and then be like, all right, bye. Okay. But yeah, so that's the end.
So this episode was claimed to be the superior of the two Neil Cross penned scripts for the Series 7, as his previous script, The Rings of Akaten, received mostly negative reactions from the fan base.
Okay.
And then there was this line that I thought you might have a question about, so I looked it up to have an answer if you asked. You didn't ask. But he says, what is the opposite of bliss? And she says, Carlisle. And I was like...
Oh, right. I forgot about that weird moment.
Yeah, and I myself was like, I don't get it. So I looked it up. And the best explanation that I could get, because this is not a thing, is... from somebody who actually lives in the town of Carlisle, this blog post that they wrote that said, this might not mean anything to people from overseas or south of the UK. It is the only city in the county of Cumbria in the north of England. But is it really as bad as Clara suggests? It might be a bit quiet for a Blackpool lass like her, but is it really the opposite of bliss? A study in 2012 suggests it's actually the happiest place to live in the UK. Another 2012 study suggests that Carlisle is the most promiscuous city in Europe, so maybe there's too much bliss around, or maybe Carlisle men are the biggest liars.
I like that. Huh. Yeah, I thought for some reason that, like, there was some, like, music group named Carlisle and Bliss. Sounds like a music group.
Yeah.
Or it could be, like, a British, like, store like Marks and Spencer. You know?
No, I guess it's
yeah,
just
okay.
a dig at a particular town in northern England for some reason.
Shit. Brutal.
Sounds like someone has a problem.
Yeah, right?
We do have a review.
Hey, what's up? Give it to me.
Fun show with some flaws. 3 stars. By RMG from the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. A fun concept, and it's really enjoyable to revisit the show through fresh eyes. The hosts are chatty and pleasant to listen to, and I like the fairly informal discussion feel. Great to listen to on the commute or while working, although I tend to listen on 1.5 speed, as the pace can be slow and dead air is often not cut down. This way, the 1 hour, 30-minute plus episodes can fit in about 45 minutes without losing any content, so definitely recommend listening this way, especially if you find yourself with time constraints. Can be frustrating on occasion because the hosts tend to get very heated over plot holes that are clearly addressed in the show, which would be fine if they didn't dedicate quite so much time to it. Review written having listened up to the end of the Gridlock episode so far. So this person's very early on. Gridlock is season 3.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is a fair complaint about dead air. I don't go through and edit this show the way that I did with, like, Song of Ice and Fire when I first started recording, because I have so many shows going that I just don't have time to do that. And I know that there was I can't remember what the podcast host was, but it was somebody from a pretty big network who somebody commented about how they listen on accelerated time, and the co-host was like, so offended. They really were like, we put a lot of work into making a product the way it's meant to be consumed, and how dare you, it's disrespectful. If you're listening, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Go ahead and listen to it fast. That's fine. Go ahead, do what you like. I listen to Midnight Sun on 1.5 speed because it's so long. So that's fine. You know? I actually appreciate that one. That's not so bad. I thought they were going to be like, well, this bitch.
No,
but,
it's...
You know, that was all very valid.
It's not so bad. I would have preferred, if you're going to go with less than 5 stars, with this review 4 would have been nicer, but it's fine. Maybe they'll change their review once they get further along, because I think early on, too, there probably was dead air because I was having to be very careful about some of your questions. So sometimes I had to think about how to word my response, where I've gotten a little bit quicker with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's just sometimes it's just the sort of thing that when you're trying to find the right word and whatnot, and it can take a minute, or you're trying to, like, for me, I'm going through the episode, like, trying to find the spot where somebody says the certain thing so I can quote it directly.
Yeah.
So, that's fine.
It happens. I mean,
yeah.
I do the editing on the Vampire Diaries, and I do tend to listen through. I do it a lot faster than I used to. I sometimes know, like, oh, there was a spot, around this point where I know I want to, like, cut out some of the side chatter, or there was a distraction or whatever, and I can find it pretty easily. But sometimes I'm like, why is there that big gap there? And I realize, like, I waited a little while to figure out how to respond to her without revealing anything. And I'll shorten that gap a little bit.
Yeah.
But I only have to edit 1 podcast a week. And you are editing a lot of podcasts a week, so I'm not surprised that you're just like, okay, this is where they line up. We're done.
Pretty much, yeah. There's occasionally times where it'll be a long wait, even for what we normally do. That often happens. No offense, Miles, if you're listening, but Miles will take a long moment to formulate a thought sometimes, and I often have to, like, go in there with him. And I just sort of, like, will pause real quick on my track and then restart to give myself a spot where I know really easily how to find it again. But I don't really have to do that often. And yeah, I do 12 recordings a week. 13 recordings every other week.
Yeah.
So I have a lot to get through. So, But yeah, like I said, I think that's totally valid, and I really understand that. And it's probably, if I'm being honest, something that would irritate me if I were listening to somebody else's show and that happened. But I have to make my priorities where I make them. So
yeah, if you had somebody that you were paying to do the editing, you could shorten all that stuff, but you're doing it yourself, and it's very time consuming. And I think people don't realize how time consuming it can be.
Yeah, I think that's a big, a lot of people will tell me that they're thinking of starting a podcast and they have all these ideas. And I encourage anybody to give it a shot, because sometimes it can really be exactly what you were looking for a hobby. But, there's a lot more to it than a lot of people think, and they get very excited about it, and then they start to realize just what it takes, and it's different than how they expected it to be.
That's why Krista and I went back to just doing one episode of the Vampire Diaries a week instead of two. Because we were covering 2 a week together, and it was taking me a long time to get those edited. It was a lot of investment in us having to watch the episodes. She writes up recaps that she reads out on the show. It was just a lot of work, and we both have full-time jobs.
Yep.
So I was like, we decided to do it that way because there's so many seasons of the Vampire Diaries. But when we picked it back up after taking a almost 2-year break, I was like, look, let's be nice to ourselves.
Yeah.
And just do 1 episode a week. It'll take longer. We'll be doing this for the next few years, but we'll enjoy it a lot more.
And starting January, I cut one of my slots for Spoil Me.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because
Good.
it's been too much.
Yeah.
And I needed to get 1 extra slot per day, which adds up to about 3 hours of work total that I'm freeing up for myself.
That's good.
It's just,
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Thank you for the review, though, RMG. We really do
honestly,
appreciate it.
Even if people leave us bad reviews, it still helps us. Just the sheer number of reviews is what Apple takes into account when it shows results when people Google, when people search on podcasts, Doctor Who. The more reviews you've got, the higher on the list you show up, no matter whether those reviews are good or bad.
Well, we have 66 reviews.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And this wasn't a bad review, so we're not saying that.
Yeah. All right. Well, by the time this goes up, Halloween will be over and we'll be into November. And it'll be Jamie's birthday will be coming up. Owen's birthday is coming up. There's going to be a lot of Scorpios in my life. And
the election is coming.
We're not talking. No, I don't.
We may all be crying.
I'm sure that's not important. And then also the other thing that's super important is that Miles and I will be finishing Midnight Sun and getting back into Mistborn.
You got through that fast.
Yeah, I did that on purpose.
Oh.
Because that book is endless. So I chopped it up into 5 parts, and it's hours of reading per part. But Miles has agreed that it was the right thing to do because there is so very little new information.
He also seems to hate it.
Oh, he's so mad about it, you guys. It's hilarious. He gets so angry. I think our discussions are good, and it's not like Midnight Sun doesn't have its interesting parts. And personally, I find Bella Swan so deeply unrelatable and so boring that going into his perspective, I find much more interesting. But Miles totally disagrees with me and hates being in Edward's perspective. So, it's kind of a fun discussion, actually, because I didn't expect him to have that reaction. But, like I said, that's going to be coming to an end very soon. And then we're going to be getting into the second Mistborn book. So if you've been waiting for that, you can become a patron to listen at patreon.com/unspoiled. And you can find us on facebook.com/unspoiledpod, Twitter at Unspoiled Show, Instagram at Unspoiled Podcast, and unspoiledpodcast.com. And I think that's everything.
If you
become
you
want to add?
No. Listen to our Vampire Diaries show. It's really fun.
Okay. Listen to it, guys.
I was going to say, if you become a patron, you get to join the Mighty Network, which is exclusive.
Yeah, and it's got different channels which are where spoilers are allowed. Mm-hmm. And you can go in there and talk to people about the dumbass thing that I said and how wrong I am. So, yeah, if you would like to be able to be in those spoiler conversations, that's the place to go. So become a patron. And I think that's it.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, thank you again so much for listening. And we will see you next week with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
Unspoiled Network podcast.